I gave 23 people unlimited credit cards. By sundown, my butler was flashing a brand new Rolex, my chef had diamond knives on rush delivery, and one black card sat untouched on a maid's nightstand. If it were you, what would you have done? My name is Victor Hale. I'm 53, and for most of my life I believed two simple rules. Everyone has a price, and I'm very good at finding it. That belief built me jets and houses and headlines that called me ruthless, which I wore like a tailored suit. When ruthless gets bored, it looks for entertainment. So I invented little loyalty experiments that let me peek into people's souls, or so I told myself. Yeah, that happened. The morning this story begins, I called my senior staff to the main hall, the one with the marble floors that echo every whisper. Gregory, my butler, stood front and center, with that polished smile he saved for guests. Marcus, the chef, rocked on his heels, already calculating. David, the chauffeur, kept his gaze soft, but his eyes were busy. And near the end of the semicircle, half hidden by a column, like she was trying to disappear, stood Amara Johnson. Late 20s, steady hands, the quiet kind of beautiful. You only notice if you slow down. I pulled a stack of black metal cards from my jacket. Heavy, cold, powerful enough to change a life in one swipe. These are tied to my personal account. I said no limits. Buy what you want. Call it a bonus. Call it a gift. Call it whatever lets you sleep. I watched the information detonate behind their eyes. Fingers twitched. Breaths quickened. Someone asked, "Is this a test?" And I gave my usual line, "Everything in life is a test." It sounded clever. It was cruel. Cards slid from my hand to theirs. When I reached Amara, she didn't move. "Take it," I said. "Sir, I don't think I should. I insist." Her fingers trembled as she took the card like it might burn. As soon as I left, the whispers started. Spend enough to show gratitude, not enough to look greedy. Everyone suddenly an ethicist with a shopping cart. From my study, I watched the transactions hit in real time the way meteorologists watch storms. A Rolex for Gregory. Japanese knives for Marcus. First class to Monaco for David. The totals spun like a slot machine and my thesis stretched its legs. But one line stayed frozen. Amara's card. Noon nothing. Evening nothing. The next morning still nothing. You want to know what makes a man like me suspicious? Silence. I'll admit it. I look at patterns more than people. It's how you stop feeling anything about the people caught in those patterns. But that night, a camera in the servants' wing caught Amara sitting on the edge of her bed, the card on her nightstand catching moonlight, turning it over like a coin she didn't want to spend. At 4:30 a.m., her alarm buzzed. She was already buffing the marble before the grandfather clock had anything to say. She moved like someone who knows invisibility keeps you safe. On the third day, the line finally moved. Not at a luxury boutique, not downtown. A little pharmacy in a poor neighborhood, handwritten signs in the window, a bell over the door that probably came with the lease in 1961. Then the hospital billing office. Then a community center I fundraised at once when I still cared about appearances. The totals didn't look like one person buying one thing. I pulled the details. 12 held prescriptions released. 3 family accounts cleared right before collections. 15 computers. Art supplies, bandages, children's books, basketball hoops that weren't bent. In the memo on one receipt, the clerk had typed anonymous donor requests, no publicity. I stared at the screen. Then I did something I hardly ever do. I left the house without my driver. The pharmacist adjusted his thick glasses and told me a young woman had come in with a list, a black card, and a simple instruction. Pay the holds and please don't tell anyone who did it. At the hospital, the director said a quiet woman asked for families with children, accounts headed for collections, and she ran my card for the exact totals. At the community center, the director cried as she walked me through a room that would finally have computers that turned on without a prayer. No plaque, no photo, no speech. The woman had asked what they actually needed, then she bought that. Hold up. Why would someone with rent past due and a sick mother and a brother behind on tuition use an unlimited card on strangers? I didn't know those details yet, but you will. Ask yourself now, though. If it were you, what would you have done? When Amara came by my office to return the card, I tried to hand her an envelope. $5,000 in cash with a note that said VH, because I still believed initials make money cleaner. She looked at me, not angry, not flattered, just steady. Thank you, sir, but I'm paid fairly for my work. I can't accept this. She set the envelope on the edge of my desk like a hot pan and left. Who refuses a bonus from a billionaire? People who know what strings feel like, that's who. Refusing me didn't win her friends. The Rolex crowd laughed in the staff dining room about buying bandages with a black card. They bumped her on the grand staircase just hard enough to scatter fresh linens like white flags across the railing. I opened my office door and watched her collect every sheet with her face burning, but her back straight. Do you think that's fair? I didn't either, and that scared me because the old me would have called it entertainment. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. I saw Amara in the small library one night tutoring Lucy, the groundskeeper's daughter, on state capitals and fractions. She had that patient teacher voice you can't fake. I was going to slip away, then she said something that pinned me in the doorway. Kindness isn't a loan, it's a gift. Pass it on when you can. She said it like she wasn't trying to be wise. She said it like a memory. There's another thread here. My daughter Elizabeth. We hadn't spoken in 3 years. Our last conversation ended with her telling me she didn't need my money, she needed a father. Now she worked at a free clinic in Boston, because fate has a dark sense of humor. I texted, "I miss you." She wrote back, "What do you really want?" I told her the truth, or tried to. I wanted to apologize in person, no entourage, no performance. Thursday, 2 p.m., she said. Come alone. I sat in that clinic waiting room in a chair held together by a Lego under one leg and watched a little boy with a bandaged hand lick a lollipop like it was gold. Elizabeth walked out in a white coat with my eyes and my mother's jaw. She didn't hug me. She didn't have to. She showed me rooms patched with duct tape and a pharmacy that ran on donations and a line of people who have learned to be patient with systems that don't love them back. Why are you here, Dad? To understand the person I lost while I was busy winning. Since when? Since a maid used my card to teach me what wealth really is. A maid. Elizabeth smiled, then shook her head. I want to meet her. Back at the estate, I tried to do one decent thing right. I called a staff meeting not to play another game, but to end them. No more loyalty tests. No more manipulation. Wages were going up. The servants' quarters would be renovated. And I was starting something I should have built a long time ago. A foundation with real money behind it to clear medical debt fund community centers and make sure kids had computers that turned on first try. I asked Amara to help me run it. She said, I'm a maid, sir. I said, you're the only person here who had unlimited money and didn't buy a single thing for herself. That makes you qualified where it counts. Not everyone was ready to applaud. Here's your twist. Gregory, who had served me 15 years, walked into my study with a folder and a face like a concerned uncle. Sir, you should see this. Inside were receipts proving Amara had skimmed 20,000 beyond what appeared on my screen, funneling it through. He couldn't even finish the story. He called a staff meeting, waves the papers plays prosecutor. The room buzzed. People love a fall from grace. Amara stood still and said, "We should do a full audit. No tears, no speech, just the truth." I called Jonathan, my aide. We had already tracked every purchase. Digital footprints don't care for gossip. The receipts were forged. Gregory, however, had routed 10,000 through a cancelled luxury order to an offshore account. The old me would have dressed that down in private. The new me said it out loud. He was fired before he could decide whether to beg or threaten. The room went silent, except for the fear. Because the truth does that. It clears the air and makes people see themselves. After the dust settled, I found Amara in the kitchen, steam curling from a pot, on low hands, shaking only when she thought no one was looking. "I'm sorry," I said, "for making this house into a circus and turning your dignity into a tightrope." She shook her head. "You didn't make them act like that, sir. People show who they are when they think no one is watching." "Are you angry?" I asked. She sighed. "Anger costs energy I don't have. I need it for things that matter. You know what I mean." There was one more storm coming. Houston Medical called her during a lunch break she never really took. Her mother needed surgery soon. The number made her shoulders drop. The cost would be around 40,000 out of pocket. She stood by a window and whispered, "We'll figure it out, Mama, I promise." Later she told me because I asked, and because I had started asking like a person. "Please don't help," she said, firm but not cold. "I can't be the story they whisper about. I can't be the maid who took money." I wanted to argue that dignity doesn't pay surgeons, but I saw the line she had drawn and stepped back. That night, I made calls anyway, not to force to build a structure where help could arrive without my name. The next morning, she told me there had been a miracle, a grant she hadn't applied for approved in record time. She looked at my face like it might blink something honest. I said, "Good things happen sometimes." Maybe that was the first time she let me keep a secret for the right reason. A week later, my daughter arrived as a friend from Boston, because people love fiction when it protects what's tender. She found Amara in the garden showing Lucy how to tie tomato vines to a stake. Plants help each other. Amara said the tall ones give shade, the marigolds keep pests away. That's what we're supposed to do. Elizabeth asked her a blunt question. Why spend a billionaire's card on strangers when your own family is drowning? Amara tied the last knot and said, "Because kindness wasn't given to me as a loan, it was given as a gift. And you don't keep a gift locked up when your neighbor's house is on fire." 6 months moved fast. The ballroom that used to host people who say "ibtdio" like a love language was filled with teachers and nurses and parents with kids running circles around folding chairs. The foundation had cleared more than 10 million in medical debt, kitted out computer labs that had been running on wishful thinking, stocked libraries, fixed roofs, and given 20 small businesses enough oxygen to breathe. We had numbers on a screen, but what got me were the faces. A mother who could finally sleep. A teenager who was going to graduate on time. A retired mechanic who could climb his front steps because a ramp showed up in a truck, and men with tool belts stayed until sundown. If you don't feel that, check your pulse. We designed a logo I didn't deserve. 2 hands forming a circle, one giving, one receiving, and if you look long enough, you can't tell which is which. That's the point. Give right, and you receive something you can't put in a ledger. And because you're probably wondering, yes, there was a conversation in the garden on the same bench where I had watched her eat alone on her break back when I was good at counting and bad at seeing. The party noise faded behind the hedges like a soft radio, and I told her the truth I had been practicing more than a speech. The best days of my life were the last months, not because we were giving away money, but because she had cut a hole in the wall I built around myself and let the air in. I said I might be in love with you. She closed her eyes, then opened them and held my gaze. We do the work first, she said. We build this right, we protect each other's dignity, and if there's more, we walk toward it together, one step at a time. Simple, solid, human. If you were us, what would you have done? Now let me make it messy, because the end of a story shouldn't make you sleepy. It should make you argue with your screen. Should I have had the power to erase a stranger's medical debt with a signature when the system that created that debt is still humming like a well-oiled engine? Should a maid with a sick mother have to rely on a billionaire's experiment to keep her family from breaking? Is philanthropy redemption or reputation dressed in better lighting? And when a man like me changes, do you clap or do you ask why it took so long? Be honest. Here's where I landed. I retired the black card that started all of this. It sits in the top drawer of my desk, a heavy little reminder that it is easy to spend money, and very hard, and very worth it, to spend yourself. I used to think wealth was what you could count. Now I think it's what you can't. The lump in your throat, when a mother says we can keep the lights on the way. Your grown daughter leans her shoulder into yours in a crowded room because you finally feel safe. The quiet relief in your own chest when you realize you're done playing God and ready to be human. You know what I mean? So I'm asking you not as a billionaire running a game, not as a voice in your earbuds, but as someone who had to unlearn a language he thought he wrote. If you had unlimited money for one day, would you fix your own storm first or put out fires across the street? Is there a right answer or just the answer you can live with when the lights go off? Do you think tests like mine are ever justified, or are they just cruelty with a better soundtrack? And what would you change, not in your bank account, in your radius, so the next Amara doesn't need a miracle for her mother to get into an operating room? Drop your truth in the comments. Tell me I'm late, tell me I should have given it all away sooner. Tell me generosity without policy is a bandage on a broken bone. Or tell me a story. The time someone showed up for you, or the time you showed up for a stranger, because it was the only thing that made sense. If this hit you in the gut, tap like so it finds the next person who needs it. Subscribe if you want more high-stakes stories with real heart, and share this with the one friend who would have spent that black card on strangers, no hesitation. I'm Victor, and this is the truest thing I know how to say. See you in the next one.